South Africa braces for nationwide marches tomorrow against illegal immigration. Thousands are expected to take to the streets. One of the groups leading the mobilization is March and March, which insists that the protest will be peaceful despite concerns raised by authorities. Let's speak now to Jacinta, who, of course, is the founder of March and March around these. Jacinta, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate you joining us as well this morning. Are you able to just share with us the plans for tomorrow?
Thank you, Arabile, and thank you for the opportunity. I think tomorrow it's really a protest that's going to be seen through 7 of the 9 provinces so far. We are trying to get the Northwest on board, even though there's a bit of glitches, and the Free State as well. But so far, all the 9 provinces look to be participating in tomorrow's protest, which is a message to our government. And you can no longer label us as xenophobic for standing up for what is right. Our security is at risk, our resources are depleted, and jobs are being taken over and replaced by cheap labor. There's a lot going on in terms of crime as well. And South Africa cannot survive trying to absorb all of these problems just to save an image that is not true.
The question marks that perhaps many would ask at this time is, however, where would these marches happen or these demonstrations happen? The kind of demonstration you're hoping to have and the number of people you think are said to be involved?
Look, we're looking for demonstrations that are going to be obviously with a lot of law enforcement, and we aim to use that law enforcement in order to find places that are hotspot areas for drugs especially, which is what we usually do in our marches, because we know that policemen in those particular areas where we march at are usually police who are compromised, who are part of the drug networks. So usually when we have police from outside, like your POP members, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of NIU members as well. We want the community to be the ones that take them and point them to the hotspot areas where the drugs are, where the human trafficking is, where the children who are kept for prostitution are, and that's our main objective.
Is there anything different between demonstrations that might happen tomorrow to all the demonstrations that have previously happened from March and March?
No, the only difference is that we have a reactive government who saw an opportunity to steal money using the name of protest. So they did exactly that by creating fear amongst people. The 30th of June was never meant to be a date that is set for any violence or any looting or anything like that. But all over the world, they started creating this hype and this invention in their heads that something scary must happen. And, you know, it's even opened up the gates for criminal elements to see opportunities that were not even there, because we've always been marching all along and we don't even know why they decided that the 30th of June must be something that they make to look like a Holocaust. But we're going to do our best to make sure that all our protests remain as they've been all along, and that is peaceful and impactful, because the greatest impact of our marches is that we always want to make sure that we go to drug dens and we show where they are so that the police don't pretend like they don't know.
Would you then, and this is maybe you can even call it a hypothetical situation, but would you not be served best then not, for example, demonstrating tomorrow to show that tomorrow has nothing to do with the whole cause and the case that you're laying forward, but that government should actually be acting on immigration, whether it's today, tomorrow, into eternity?
You know, when we had a meeting with the police, we actually asked them, what happens tomorrow when the protests are done? What are you going to be doing for the rest of the day? Because for us, that's a matter of interest. You can't be spending 600 million rand for a protest. That's not even going to last the whole day. Whereas we have been demanding those very same resources for fighting crime, for example, for going into these areas that are hotspots like the Sunnyside in Pretoria, the Hillbrow in Johannesburg, the Point Road in Durban, and almost every single city in South Africa has a place where Nigerians are living there, pushing drugs and prostitution and human trafficking. Where were all of these resources that we're seeing now? Where were the private security? If government had an option to use all of these things that they have at their disposal, why were they not using them? Because we wouldn't even be on the streets today if they had acted as proactively as they are against a march.
Yeah. So again, I will then just ask my question. Sorry to harp on it a little bit then, Jacinta, but to just highlight what you said previously, which was that the 30th of June was never meant to be a date. And in fact, us as media, the government, everybody has perhaps made it a date of major concern, right? And a date in which this is a D-Day and a deadline. And I'm asking, would you not then be better served not having your demonstrations tomorrow to highlight that it's not about tomorrow, it's actually about the cause, which is what March and March are standing for?
No, let me tell you, Arabile, the 30th of June was never announced by March and March. It was announced by Phakile Mthakathi, and I keep saying that, he keeps saying that. It wasn't announced as an event. It was announced as a means to tell illegal immigrants themselves to self-deport out of the country. Now, the only reason we are continuing with the demonstration, or why we even had demonstrations in the first place, is because the government has created so much tension and so much fear around the day that people have decided to take leave from work and not go to work. And our worry now is that if people are idle and they're not doing anything on the day, that could be exactly what causes them to have silly ideas to do silly things. So that's why we're saying might as well gather on the day and protest, because that's really the main idea and what we've been doing all along. We don't know what is this idea that government has that something different is going to be happening. You know, I was even saying in one of my interviews, I think it's the most ridiculous things to say, oh, 2021, there was looting and we're scared. I'm saying if we were going to do something ridiculous, we've had days. We've been in existence for a year and almost a year and a half now. And if we wanted to do something, why would we announce a date and attach a timeline to it, a date where we're going to be having venues where the police are going to be present? That doesn't make any sense. But because our government is reactionary, they always think that they have solutions which are temporary solutions and never, ever go to the root cause of the problem to solve that.
So, Jacinta, does that, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, and please correct me here. But you're saying ultimately that while you don't agree with the date, because it was never a date that March and March set, while you don't agree with the date, because people have now taken off from work, as you state, and some people have seen it as a deadline, then you might as well join. So is that not losing your own purpose to fulfill other people's purposes because it wasn't meant to be your date either?
I don't look at it that way. I mean, we work together with Phakile Mthakathi, and if he announced the date and we're on the same mission, on the same cause, I don't see it as a distraction or moving away from the cause, because we've been doing the same thing, marching the streets, peacefully so, you know. And I've been saying that the greatest thing that has scared me is the interpretation from the media and all of these other religious groups that have come out now to tell us that it's vigilante to march the streets wearing your traditional attire. I mean, Zulu men, even at a wedding, dress the way that they do when they're protesting. What are you trying to say? That we must be ashamed of who we are because you're going to tell us that when we're walking down the streets dressed in our traditional outfits, we're trying to intimidate and scare people? You know, for me, it makes absolutely no sense. So you're saying we're trying to intimidate and scare people at a wedding? Because like I said, even at a wedding, that's the dress code with sticks and everything. So I feel like we're dealing with a very tricky situation here where, you know, I'm going to blame Arabile, the media's role in this, the NGO's role in this, the government's role in this, and a lot of external forces that are trying to pretend as if we're the ones that are funded, as they claim. But I'm telling you, the greater funding is in the ones that are funding the NGOs and the NPOs. And if you find where those people are being funded and where their money is going to, because we've been asking the Department of Social Development, where does the money that comes to these NPOs go to? They say they don't know. The last thing they ever do is to register them, and it ends there. That's not a working model for anyone who wants to make sure that their country is safe. Getting money from foreign agencies and you're not tracing the money, because we've been saying, tell us where the money for the NPOs and NGOs is going.
As a proud Zulu and myself, Jacinta, I think one must add that 100% the attire at weddings, at celebrations, even at funerals from time to time can be in exactly the manner that we've just shown our audiences as well on screen as we're showing them there. The great concern, I suppose, is that when you're having a demonstration against something, which is illegal immigration in this instance, it could provide provocation, not because you're actually doing something, but because at the same time, they're now going to be police who have now been backed by 600 million rand, which the South African Police Service has reorganized and re-strategized to put towards this. And now there could be one moment of clash, and then you're seen as having weapons which could impact harm. Is that of any concern at all? How do you ensure that it doesn't escalate?
I think we've had several marches, Arabile, and these marches have had the same model and they've been fine. There hasn't been any clashes. I think the government, as I continuously say, of South Africa, really doesn't have a plan on how to fix the issue. And right now we're dealing with a government that is reactionary, as I keep saying. But if you look at Mayfair, for example, Arabile, where South Africans currently are being chased out of Mayfair because Somali. Those are the things that the 600 million rand is meant to be focusing on. That is where you should be spending your resources, like on places that South Africans in general are saying, we know these areas to be hotspot areas for criminal syndicates who are organized and have organized crime and are foreign nationals but cannot be found because most of them are undocumented. Go to Point Road in Durban, go to Sunnyside in Pretoria, go to Hillbrow in Durban. And I know there's a lot of places that people have been telling us, like in California, in the Eastern Cape, we didn't even know it exists. In Witbank, in Mpumalanga, people there are complaining about the same thing. So it's a similar model every single way in the country. If the government was serious about spending the 600 million, they would have spent it on getting rid of these places where foreign nationals are there in numbers and are making us feel uncomfortable in our own area. They would have spent 600 million on the Department of Home Affairs, making sure that they build a gate at our borders to secure our borders. They would have spent the 600 million on getting more immigration officers, because you can't have an immigration crisis and you only have 800 immigration officers and you tell us that you're trying to solve the problem. You're never going to solve the problem. So I'm saying the government is wasting 600 million rand because marching is not going to end. We're not going to stop just because the 30th has come. After the 30th, we're going to march even more. So they're going to spend 600 million every single time instead of solving the problem, which is to remove illegal immigrants from our country. It's that simple.
Can you ensure that other South Africans who perhaps are not participating in these marches will still be safe? One, will not suffer from blocked roads, closed businesses, continued unrest and the like?
Look, all I can say is that South Africans who are not part of the protest, if they want to go to work, they must go to work. If they want to go about their day, they can go about their day. But you know what? The only thing I sit here and assure is that on our part, we're going to make sure that there's no violence that we promote. There's no violence that we try and have on the day. And we're gonna make sure that we do our best for people to behave themselves, and that's as far as I can take it. But in protest, I mean, I don't have the proper recipe for protest. And if people want to protest by sleeping on the road and it disturbs traffic, I can't say that won't happen, because it will happen. People are angry, people are frustrated at a government that doesn't listen to them, and if people want to make sure that the government listens to them, it's only the government that's going to solve this problem. I continuously say, tell us what you're going to do to solve the problem. We've got a problem at the border with people still trying to come into the country illegally. We've got thousands of people here who have no documents, and you didn't even tell us how they got here. In fact, you're ignoring that issue as if it's not happening right now, and you're making people who are in the country legally victims without explaining to us how are they in the country legally. Our safety and security is at risk here, and we're not doing this because we're bored. We're doing it because we're tired of a country where the laws are only applying to one part of the country, and it's only poor people. If the laws of the country, if they're obsessed about the laws of the country as they did with the 600 million that they're spending, and the Minister of Police is issuing threats on TV, and they were doing that to people who are employing illegal immigrants, trust me, today we wouldn't have a problem. If they are doing that with people who are giving them places to stay and they're enforcing those laws, trust me, we wouldn't have a problem with that. If they were arresting Home Affairs officials who are selling out documents, we wouldn't have the problem we have today.
Are you worried that those who are actually legal migrants in South Africa could then be even more intimidated by what is happening now too? Because some may not necessarily have a South African accent or speak in a particular way. but still be seen as a foreign national, and because maybe they're not carrying their ID, their passport, whatever the case might be, and though they're legally in the country, feel intimidated by all of this. How do we ensure that they remain comfortable throughout this process?
Look, I think, like I said, the messaging of this country is very confusing. One, they must decide. Firstly, they said that we are just looking at people's skin and deciding if they're foreigners. And then, secondly, they also say that we are looking for people's IDs and going around searching for IDs. So, which is which? Are we using skin color to decide, or are we using the issue of documentation? But secondary to that, the real issue here is enforcing the law. And enforcing the law means that I, as Jacinta, carry my ID everywhere I go. That shouldn't even be a problem. It shouldn't even be something that I, as a South African, feel bad about, because when I go to a hospital, I'm supposed to have my ID. If I go to take out money, I have to have my ID. Why is it so offensive for people to have an identity document? It's not apartheid era where you are asked to carry a document because you're being restricted from going to certain areas. No, you are asked to carry your identification so that we can make sure that you are in the country legally, whether you are South African or not. And we're dealing with the crisis here. So if solving the problem means that we have to carry our IDs until they clean out the
Jacinta,
country and then we walk freely, then it shouldn't be a problem. I don't understand why people feel
Jacinta.
so offended. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think my key worry with what you've said, though, is the worry that a civilian, anybody from March and March is asking people for their IDs. It's not about carrying the ID.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it should be civilians that are enforcing that law. No. I'm saying that it should be fine for us if the government implements something like that says we have to carry our IDs. It shouldn't be something that I find offensive. And they increase the number of immigration officers, et cetera, and the amount of people being deported. If that is one of the solutions, we are more than happy to welcome that. But we don't want to be on the streets and saying that people must bring their IDs. We're not saying that. But remember, we as March and March, we have never gone out to do operations without the police. That is something I maintain even today.
Yeah.
The police have to be there to make sure that the person that we're with there is properly identified, and if not, they arrest them.
Jacinta Ngobese-Zuma, cannot appreciate your time more than we have already. Thank you for joining us this morning and providing us with as much clarity as you certainly can. Hopefully speak to you again very soon. The founder of March and March, as we, of course, get worried and as well as focus on those immigration protests and demonstrations which certainly could be sparked and have happened already across the country.